All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again. Welcome once again. Good to have you with me tonight. As you make your way in from the club or wherever you've been here on Friday night, please smash up the like button and subscribe and share with your friends. It's good to have you guys here. We're going to get into some good stuff tonight. I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I'm going to get right into it. Tonight, I want to talk about BRICS. I want to talk about BRICS tonight. I'm going to do a lot of different segments over the course of this year. Hopefully, I would say from now going into the end of the summer, I can give you guys some good stuff that you could use at a very important time right now. You know what happened today to former President Trump with 34 felonies and things of that nature, and with an election coming up in November. This could make for a very tumultuous year. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully we can keep things peaceful and keep things in order. But I know it's a very, I don't want to say scary time for people, but it's a little uneasy, I would say. But I think if we just hold things together, I think we as a country and us people and this nation, I think we'll be fine. But I'm going to deal with the more important things that I think that is important to all of us as Americans, and that is the economy. For if you don't have money to take care of your family, if you don't have a financial system to take care of your family and preserve your wealth throughout the future, then to me, everything else is null and void. I mean, you have your ideals, you have your beliefs, and all of us have different ideals and beliefs. But at the end of the day, we have to be able to survive. And finances help a big deal, probably the most important thing in surviving outside of your health, of course. So today we're going to deal with BRICS. And if you've never heard of BRICS before, I'm going to deal with the subject a little bit and maybe talk about how it affects the US dollar. Is it a big threat to the US dollar? Is the US dollar in trouble in relation to the BRICS? You know, what's going to happen in the future if the BRICS becomes a real thing, if it's something they create and it's something that comes about? How will it affect the US dollar? What does it mean for the United States of America? Hopefully we could talk about that a little bit here tonight, and it can make you think a little bit. So first thing I want to deal with as far as BRICS, if you don't know what that is, as far as the countries that are part of that, you have Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now, I could go into the importance of each particular country in relation to BRICS, but I won't do that tonight because I don't want this to be a long, drawn out thing. We may revisit this at some other time, but tonight I just want to just kind of give an overall view, just a summary of what BRICS is and how it's going to affect us, or how I think it's going to affect us. And I would imply you to do your own research and do your own due diligence in relation to the subject. So BRICS is, again, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and they've just added some more nations. So they've added Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates. And so that would give you 9 nations so far. And from what I understand, there are other nations that they're reaching out and they want to be a part of BRICS too as well. Now, what the criteria is to be a part of BRICS or how they're lining that up, that I don't know. But I know there are other nations that are looking to get into the BRICS. And just to be honest with you guys, as far as the BRICS nations are concerned, when you think about especially Russia and China, they are really trying to get away from the dollar. And they're trying to move to a currency that they can agree with as far as their countries and whoever's a part of the BRICS and the countries they're going to bring on board. But part of them, as far as in trade, dealing, economics, they want to get away from the dollar too as well. So never lose track of that. So again, we have 9 countries that are part of BRICS now, outside the original, and they account for about 37.3% of the world GDP. of the gross domestic product, which that's pretty good. I would say 37.3%. If you think about it, that's probably about over half of what Europe is, or as far as what the EU is, should I say. The EU is about 14.5%, I believe. So these countries together are about 37.3% of the world GDP. Um, so that's pretty important and pretty significant. Now, what they're looking to do is they're looking to make their own currency. They're looking to have their own currency, their own system. And so in doing that, that's going to get them away from the dollar. Now, how are they going to go about doing that? How are they going to go about establishing this system as far as getting away from the dollar and building this BRICS system? One thing that they're looking to do, and as you can see, when you come in on board as far as what my name is, I'm Blockchain Braun. And so with that name, you know that I'm very involved in cryptocurrency and digital assets. And I believe that digital assets and cryptocurrency is going to be a big part of our monetary system in the future. Now, how it's going to be a part of it, I don't know. As you see, my shirt says decentralized, but I don't know if there's going to be a way that decentralization can work when it comes to the monetary system, money movement, faster payments, and safety and insurance. I don't know how that's going to work out. I believe that you can still decentralize and be able to do that. The only thing about it is if you're going to be able to decentralize, you've got to be able to regulate, because with regulation, it brings safety, it brings some type of insurance, it brings trust to people. And so there has to be some type of mandate in order to do that. Now, I know with decentralization at its core, you want to be able to custody your own assets. You want to be able to move money, do certain things, put your money here or there without any inhibition at all, which I definitely understand. But there has to be a way, we've got to figure out a way if we're going to decentralize to be able to protect our assets, to be able to secure them where they will not be at risk of any type of faulty thing, any type of crime, any type of AML and KYC disruption. So, I mean, that's very important. So, as for now, I believe what the countries are looking to do and what the world is looking to do is to use blockchain as a conduit to basically keep the same monetary system. However, be able to tokenize it or be able to digitize it. And so, as you know, mostly everything works from a digital standpoint anyway already. We're kind of already conditioned to do it. But I think they want to even enhance it more and make it even more of a way that the masses are using it. It's going to be straight digital in the future. So you have the United States looking at a central bank digital currency. You're looking at SWIFT, which is probably, I would say, the authority when it comes to international money transactions and international money movement. SWIFT is the way to go. So they're looking to bring about a central bank digital currency too as well. Then you have your BRICS country or BRICS countries that are looking to establish their own currency. Now, with that, not only do they want to put it on a blockchain, but they are looking to establish some type of central bank digital currency on their end. If you don't know, China is already using a central bank digital currency type of yuan or a digitized yuan, I believe. And maybe it's not central bank digital, but they are using the digital yuan. And I believe what they will do, this is just my thought. If they establish a BRICS currency, I believe they will look to the yuan to be the reserve currency for the BRICS. The yuan is already using a digitized yuan already. It's already in production. And I want to say it's been used for a few years now, and it's been going well for from what I understand. The only thing is when you have a currency, and if you're looking to be the reserve currency, then there has to be order. Things have to be to where you don't have these outrageous volatilities in the currency. For instance, when you move money internationally, the biggest thing that you have to deal with is exchange rates. So these exchange rates could get really outrageous. And so let's say you move $1,000 from the United States to wherever that you move it to, by the time it gets there, because of the exchange rates and the different avenues that it has to go through, by the time it gets there, your $1,000 could turn into $800. That is a big discrepancy from where you started at before to where you're at now. Then you have to deal with the nostro vostro situation too, as well. If you don't know what nostro vostro is, you have nostro accounts that are ours. That's what it means. So nostro vostro is a Latin term. So nostro would be ours, vostro would be yours. So basically what happens is when you move money internationally, you have, let's say, the United States. So we're going to move our money to, I don't know, let's say Mexico. So what we're going to have a nostro account. We're going to have a vostro account. So when we move money or when we look to transact money, we're going to already have nostro accounts in that country's currency with, let's say, the Mexican peso. So we're already going to have an account established in the Mexican peso. We're going to transact with that money that's already there. Makes it easy to transfer or easy to transact. Let me say that. And so you really cannot do international transactions without nostro vostro accounts. Now, the vostro part of it is, so our account is with Mexico. So we have our deposits and it's in the Mexican peso. And so we have those nostro accounts established. So conversely to that, it's a mirror. So they would have their vostro accounts with us. So their vostro accounts will be with the United States in the United States currency to where they could operate and transact that way too as well. Makes it easier to transact money that way. If you don't have the nostro vostro relationship, then it's very difficult, and I would say pretty much nearly impossible to transact money cross border. So I believe with the BRICS countries, they're still going to have to deal with that nostro vostro relationship. Now, how that works, I don't know. But they're going to have to, whatever currency they use as the main currency, it's going to have to be a currency that doesn't fluctuate all over the place. There's got to be a steadiness about it. There's got to be some type of safetyness about it and some type of security with it. And I don't know if they would have that in the digital yuan. Perhaps they may have it in the digital yuan, but I'm just not sure of how stable it is right now. I know it's something that they're working with, but I believe it's a work in progress. So these are the things they have to work with before they could take over as far as like I would say, US dollar. The biggest problem we have right now with the US dollar, I believe, is we have this big inflation issue, and it seems to be getting worse. Now, is it catastrophic right now? I don't think so, but it seems to be getting worse. You show me a country that is out of control with inflation, and I will show you a country that's in some state of depression or some economic catastrophe. Because if you don't keep inflation under control, then you're not going to make it. Your economy is in big trouble. And one thing that brings about inflation is the continuous printing of money. And we can go from, if you look at Ray Dalio's book, and I have it here. Ray Dalio's book right here, The Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order, Why Nations Succeed and Fail. Ray Dalio. Don't know who Ray Dalio is. He's a very successful businessman, knows a lot about the economy. I want to say he had a very successful hedge fund. And I would say Ray Dalio is probably worth about $15.9 billion. So this book is absolutely fantastic. A lot of things in it and a lot of things that I would say are alarming, but it's some things that we need to see and some things that we need to read. He makes a lot of connections in the book. And you guys have probably heard this term before. You probably heard this quote. And they said Mark Twain had this quote. But basically, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And he makes those connections. He talked about the Dutch regime. He talked about the British regime. And then he talked about the US and the China regime. How with the Dutch regime, they went through the same things that the US is going through right now. The Dutch regime, they went through the same things that the Great British regime went through and the things that we're going through right now. You have a situation where you start out great. You're considered to be kind of the world leader in economics. You are the reserve currency. And then all of a sudden, because of you spending more than you take in, you borrowing more money than you should, things get out of hand. And then in order to compensate for it, you begin to print money and print money and print money. And the more you print money, the more your money loses its value over time. Happened with Dutch. And I believe their currency was the guilder, if I'm not mistaken. So you had the Dutch guilder. You had the British pound or pound sterling. You have the US dollar. And we're kind of, from what he showed with the Dutch guilder, went through the same thing. They went through their progress. They went through their success. And then things began to get out of hand. They began to overspend. They began to borrow. They began to borrow too much. They were not taking in enough, or what they began to take in. Too much was beginning to go out. So things got out of control. So they began to print money and print money and print money. And eventually they began to print themselves into oblivion to where their currency wasn't worth anything anymore or wasn't as valuable. Great Britain went through the same thing with the pound sterling. Went through those times of just great abundance, success economically, and they just began to things began to get out of hand, and they began to print and print and print. Next thing you know, you have a super hyperinflation situation. Then they're on the downturn, and so now on that downturn, they begin to get into a point to where they're no longer the top. Now you have another one coming up the curve, which is the United States. And so now we're at that point now. And so we're no longer at the peak. We're on the decline. Our dollar continues to lose its value. We can continue to print ourselves into oblivion. I'll give you an example. So in 2008, during the financial crisis, when we dealt with credit default swaps and subprime lending, when our country was pretty much done as far as economically, and not only that, the world. So we had to do something to kind of stabilize things and to keep things going. So what did we do? You know what we did? We printed more money. So as we printed more money, the more we continually do that, the more our money loses its value. That's just the way it is. And the more you inflate the economy. It happens over history every time. And this is not the first time it's happened in the United States, by the way. It happened in 1971. For those of you who were alive then, you know where I'm probably going with this. 1971, if you don't know why we stopped the gold standard, well, we stopped the gold standard because we were running out of gold. And so you used to have it to where, and I believe you had something on the dollar where there was something written there or something that showed like a gold label where you could actually exchange your money for gold. Well, a lot of times that happens, especially when you go through an economic crisis. People are going to move to precious metals because they see it as a more of a hedge to hedge your assets and protect them during types of economic downturns. So as the U.S. began to run out of gold, then they had to find out another way to do things because basically with the U.S. running out of gold, our money wasn't worth anything because our money was backed by gold. That's what gave it its mystique. That's what made us the world reserve currency during the Bretton Woods in 1944 when they decided to establish, okay, what's going to be the world reserve currency? We were money backed by gold. We were doing good economically. We were kind of on the upturn of everything. We avoided all the big catastrophes around war. So we became the world reserve currency backed by gold. Okay. So that happened in 1944 during the Bretton Woods. So then we come down to 1971, when we begin to run out of gold. Then Richard Nixon decides, okay, we're going to stop the gold standard. And people were like, well, maybe he's just stopping it for whatever reason or whatever. No, he stopped the gold standard because we were running out of gold. But since we were the world reserve currency, now what he could do is, okay, I know how we're going to fix this. We're going to print money because we're the world reserve currency. So we're going to print and print and print and print our way out of the situation. So that happened in 1971. You had what happened to us in 2008. Another type one of those situations. Well, of course, our money's not backed by gold now, but again, we repeated it. We printed our way out of that situation. Well, just when you think it's safe and it's good to go, we've gotten our way out of the woods. Oh man, we're in the clear now. We're straight. Here comes a pandemic, global pandemic. And I know you talk about all the things as far as what was established by Dr. Fauci and the wearing of mask and all the different things we went through there, the vaccines that they were implying us to take. But guess what else we did during the 2020 pandemic? We were in a financial conundrum then too as well. So guess what we did? We began to print money again because that's the way we handle things. And guys, the more and more we continue to print money and print money and print money, it's going to continue to increase inflation. And it's going to continue to lower the value of our dollar. That's just the facts of the matter. Then you get down to a point, Ray Dalio talks about this too in the book. You get down to the point to where when things begin to go bad economically, you begin to have infighting. You begin to maybe have fighting amongst the wealthy and the poor. You begin to have infighting even more amongst the different nationalities and cultures, or race, if you want to call it that. Or I call them people groups. So you begin to have the infighting amongst them. So you know what happens when that happens? Everybody else around the world, they're looking at how weak and how vulnerable that country looks. Man, look at how they're fighting. They can't come together on anything. It's happened over history. It happens every time. Every time over history, if you look at the countries or the nations that's been at the top and that's been at the pinnacle, these same things have happened over and over and over again. Now we're here. We're at a point within an election year where things are looking really crazy. Trump with the 34 counts. You have people on edge. A lot of people are emotional on both sides. We are in a very combustible situation. If we don't get control of what's going on right now, we are in trouble. I'm an American. I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to be here. I was born here. My parents were born here. My parents' parents were born here. My parents' parents' parents were born here. We know the history of America. Okay. But on both sides, of course, I'm African American, but on my dad's side, there's Indian and Native American on his side. Okay. So I have both sides of those. So we know what happened in America. We know the history, but I can't help it. This is where I was born at. And I guarantee you, if something were to happen to our country, let's say worst case scenario, I hate to throw this out here, but worst case scenario, if our country was attacked in any type of way, or if we were to go through any type of thing to where our families were put in danger, our friends were put in danger, we're going to do whatever we have to do to protect it. I don't care how much you say for those of you who say that you hate this country, for those of you who say you want to get away from here, I was born here. This is where I'm from. I can't say that I hate my country. I don't. And I'm going to do whatever I have to do to protect it, protect those that I love, and protect our way of living as much as I can. And that's just the fact of the matter. So if we don't get ourselves together and find a way to, even though we have our differences, to work around those differences, we are in trouble because the world is looking. They're looking at us. And we're in a very vulnerable state right now. We're in a vulnerable state from a leadership standpoint. We're in a very vulnerable state economically. And we have to get both of those things together and strengthen ourselves so we don't face even more trouble in the future. If it's not us that are alive, then it's our children. Then it's the grandchildren. Then it's the great grandchildren. Then it's the great great grandchildren. Somebody's going to suffer if you don't bring things together and get things together. And that's just the fact of the matter. So from a BRICS standpoint, they're looking to get away from the US dollar. They currently have 9 countries, and there are many, 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 many more that are looking to be added. Now, there's been a talk about a global financial reset. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but there have been some rumblings about a financial reset because they're saying that the old ways of finance do not work worldwide. So there has to be a reset. Now, to me, the BRICS countries are already resetting. So that's pretty much their reset. Now, if that's the case, what would be America's reset? Is there something already established? Are they looking to do something? I know Christine Lagarde. If you don't know who Christine Lagarde is probably, in my opinion, I think they have her ranked as maybe the number 3 most powerful woman in the world. To me, she's like number 1 or number 2. Because from what I understand, when she goes up on Capitol Hill and when she pays a visit to Capitol Hill, they move mountains for Christine Lagarde. Christine Lagarde is the head of the European Central Bank. She used to be head of the IMF. So she said, and I want to say within the next, I would say 2 to 4 years, they are looking to establish their own digital currency. And I want to say 90% of the banks worldwide are looking to do this within the next 5 years. So guys, it's not that this might happen. No, this is going to happen. And it's already being worked on. The United States is looking to establish its own digital currency too as well. They've been doing some work with it, testing some things, I believe, looking into some things. And so they're looking to do that as well. The BRICS nations, their whole system, if they establish that currency, is going to be digitized. So we are moving towards a cashless society, and we're pretty much already there. Okay. We're all conditioned to work without actually using paper money. We kind of use it sparingly. We really don't need it. But so everybody's looking to go to a digitized system. And you're probably looking, like Christine Lagarde said, within the next 2 to 4 years. That's not a really long time from now. And so when you think about the aspects of that, what is the United States going to do if the BRICS currency is established and it gets going and these countries move away from the dollar? Is the United States going to get other countries maybe to establish another system? Maybe the United States, Canada, Mexico, Japan. I don't know. But something's going to have to be done. Something's going to have to be done. So I think we're at a very critical point right now with the BRICS setting up. I think we're at a point where we're really going to have a come to Jesus meeting. For those of you who aren't Christians, they're meaning no harm, but we're going to have a really heart to heart with ourselves to see where we are, what we're going to do, what we're looking at, worst case scenario. Everything is not roses and rainbows. We're going to have to look at where we are, worst case scenario, and look at what we can do in order to protect what we have. Or if we need to go to another system, what is the most streamlined way to move to that next system while protecting what we have, while coming together and quit having these ridiculous fights about some things we should be able to come in agreement with something. If we can't come in agreement with anything else, we should be able to come to an agreement on money. We should be able to come to an agreement on economics and how we're going to protect that for everybody. If we can't come to an agreement on anything else, we've got to be able to come to a cost-effective, convenient way to govern our economics. We've got to be able to do that. Should we use a Adam Smith invisible hand theory type economics? Or should we continue to intervene government-wise in economics and do corrective things in order to straighten things out? Or should we let things straighten itself out? That's a question we need to ask ourselves. But we have got to do something. We've got to do something. All right, guys. Thank you so much for taking some time out with me tonight. And guys, do me a favor. Stay vigilant. Until next time, good night.
Yeah, yeah.